Thank you for tuning in to the Afternoon Pint. This episode is sponsored by Camilla Najat of Exit Realty, Strategy Up Business Consultants, and ISS Atlantic Security Guard Services. Enjoy the show. Cheers! Welcome to the Afternoon Pint. I'm Mike Tobin.
I am Matt Conrad.
And who do you have with us today?
Liz LeClair.
Liz LeClair.
Liz. All right. So, Liz, what do we have here? What do you do?
What do we have here?
Yeah, what do we have here?
That's a really good question. So I am, oh my God, where do I start? In order of importance, rank importance, I am the wife, very proud wife, military spouse of a naval officer. I am the stepmother of 2 teenage boys. I'm a fundraiser by profession and a shit disturber in my infinite, apparent amount of spare time. So do a lot of political advocacy and advocacy work around gender-based violence, sexualized violence, workplace safety, you name it. And in particular, I'm a volunteer with an organization called Can't Buy My Silence, which is trying to get regulation around the misuse of non-disclosure agreements.
Yeah. So we'll jump into that. I saw your article today, about a release. So maybe just tell people who haven't seen that article just a little bit what that was about.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Jennifer Graves, is an employee. She's been on long-term leave of Dalhousie University and was assaulted twice by a professor in the medical school. And at a work-sanctioned event, she disclosed that happened. Then she also reported it through the union, and as part of the settlement agreement was required to sign an NDA. For your listeners who don't know what NDAs are, they were originally out of the Silicon Valley in sort of like the 90s, around the time of the tech boom, to stop people from sharing proprietary information when they would jump from one company to another, and it was happening really frequently. They've now proliferated into like every aspect of our lives.
Yes.
You have a content.
They're that young? They're only from the 90s with Silicon Valley?
Pretty much like
I didn't realize that.
The current template, yeah.
I remember when I worked at another company, I had to sign NDAs because I was on an advisory board where I had to go up with like the CEO and like other people and everything. And so there was things that were coming and I had to sign them. And that was really like, I never signed one until that point kind of thing. But I kind of felt like they were always around. But I guess it makes sense because I grew up in the 90s. So it feels like everything was always around.
There may have been a version of it, but I think the current version that we're using now is kind of more from that era.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in everything. So you can sign an NDA as part of your employment agreement. If you check your contract, you've probably signed something saying you won't disclose proprietary information.
That's right. Yeah.
But then they've evolved to harassment.
They've evolved to everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. Accidents, insurance claims, anything that basically, if you are receiving any kind of settlement, there's usually an NDA attached to it. The Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission has one embedded in their agreement template. Pretty much every lawyer has used one.
And they're usually to protect powerful businesses or protect companies or protect individuals.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you think of NDAs in the original context around proprietary information, of course, if you went from one place of employment to another and you shared, say, like a technology that was made at Apple with something at Google, you've given away information that you've learned in one workplace and
in a privileged situation.
In a privileged situation.
Yeah.
What they've now done is basically said, okay, so we're going to settle this complaint with you, but it's contingent on you signing a non-disparagement clause, meaning you'll never say anything bad about us publicly. And an NDA saying that you will never talk about this ever happening.
Right.
The one with the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission actually was the one that I refused to sign. Basically said the only people I could talk to about my case would be an accountant or a lawyer.
And this is your personal case?
I filed one, against Clearwater Seafoods back in 2020.
What went on there? So if you don't mind me asking.
That's okay. I mean, if people could look my name up in lawsuit, and I'm currently in a civil suit against one of the former founders of Clearwater Seafoods.
Wow.
I think you posted about that actually. Yes, you did. Yeah, he was in a lot of high-powered positions.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about one of the wealthiest people in the province.
Yeah.
There's not a lot I can discuss around it right at the moment, just because it's in litigation. But
exactly.
I mean, my advocacy work, a lot of it's come out of my own experience of reporting workplace harassment, sexual harassment, my own experiences around sexual assault, and seeing how badly the system fails.
You said that was just that was just in 2020. You said
I filed my complaint in 2020, 2021.
Okay.
I started experiencing this in 2013 when I first moved back here.
Okay.
I'd been living away for 10 years.
Is that what like a personal experience? Is that what kind of propelled you to be inspired to do this type of activism, or has that always been in you?
I think my mom, if you were to ask her, she'd tell you I've always ended up doing advocacy work in some level, but this work with Can't Buy My Silence has been particularly close to the heart because almost every single person I've met that has filed a complaint or reported around racism, discrimination, ableism, you name it, they've been asked to either sign an NDA or have been told, or, a lot of us get threats, whistleblowers get threats of defamation.
Yeah.
I've had multiple defamation letters sent to me over the last...
So is there usually a pretty nasty ultimatum if you don't sign the NDA?
Well, okay, so I'll give you this Jennifer scenario. So Jennifer reported these assaults to Dalhousie. And they agreed to settle with her to compensate her for the harm done. But she signed an NDA, which she outlined in the letter that she posted last night, that she was basically not allowed to report to occupational health and safety. She wasn't allowed to report to regulators. She wasn't able to talk about her settlement with the police or law enforcement.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine if you're trying to hold someone accountable and you can't talk about what happened because you signed an NDA. And if you disclose what was in the NDA or what you signed on to, you lose your compensation. And a lot of people make the argument that NDAs, a lot of women in particular, they say, oh, well, you've got the money now. Why do you need to keep talking about what's happened? But I think people make the mistake of thinking these are large amounts of money. We're talking, on average, most settlements are somewhere in around $10,000.
Oh, God, really?
It barely would cover the cost of your legal fees, and you can't live off of that.
No.
So Jennifer actually offered to return her compensation, and Dal refused.
Oh, wow.
She has fought them for the last 10 years, and her example is a really, I would say, terrible, horrific example of how NDAs are being used to cover up really terrible crimes. And that the universities, public institutions, nonprofits, charities, employers all use them because what they want is for it to go away. Here's your money. Please stop talking about it.
Well, everyone would famously know, if you don't know what an NDA is, everyone would know that that's what got Donald Trump into some hot water with Stormy
Daniels or the Hockey Canada scandal.
Or
right?
the hockey, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So that was actually one of the things I got really irate about was, and I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me, but that Hockey Canada scandal came out, and then the Premier and the Mayor had to decide whether or not to allow the World Juniors to go ahead here in Halifax, and they decided to let it go ahead regardless of the fact that this institution has been systematically covering up gang rapes.
Yeah.
Hockey Canada and World Juniors there's that one story is certainly something, but we know there's multiple cases of where the teams have gang raped women.
Wow.
And it's been covered up through settlements. So it's one of those things where, when we talk about the solution to gender-based violence, it can't just be that women are putting their hands up screaming, saying like, this is wrong. This is where we need male allies and men, and especially men in positions of power saying, you know what, this isn't right. This is going to suck, and there's a lot of contracts that are going to be broken, but this is the wrong thing for us to do, is to host the games back in the same city where this first incident of assault happened in the first place. So
yeah,
this is a really uplifting conversation.
Hey,
but you know what?
Hey,
Like,
get real with it. I like it.
We got real fast. Yeah.
But the NDA thing, like I was actually sitting in the legislature a year and a half ish ago or whatever. I was there because I was actually being thanked for my volunteer work.
Oh, right.
But I happened to be there when Elizabeth actually Smith McCrossan
submitted the
NDA thing to have it changed.
Yeah.
I mean, she's an independent, so it wasn't really going anywhere.
Yes,
unfortunately. But I listened to what she had to say, and I agree. I honestly, fully right in that moment, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Like it's ridiculous that people use these NDAs to just like hush people up. And I mean, I totally, don't get me wrong. I understand the business side of it. I understand it's like, hey, we're going to pay you enough money so that it doesn't damage our reputation. But it's like, you're hiding crimes. You're buying people's
silence.
You're buying people's silence. Like hence what
the name of the organization.
The name of the organization.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where you're just kind of like, the person who's in that position, and I mean, you would know this better than I would, but my understanding is like they're in such a situation where they feel like, well, you know what, I'll just take the money because I'm hurting them a little bit, I'm gaining a little bit, and I don't have to have my name dragged out, in public.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding, I think, as well, because it is very, it's hard for people to understand it because part of this is that it's done in silence and behind closed doors, right? So how would you know what's happening? So basically what happened, one of the things, so one of our co-founders of the campaign is Zelda Perkins. She was the first woman to break her NDA with Harvey Weinstein. So she lives in London, or just outside of London. And Zelda broke her NDA with the full knowledge that there was a possibility that they'd come after her for the money that they had paid her. It just so happened the timing, it was the right time in history with the right amount of momentum. Harvey Weinstein was a prolific assaulter of people, and his companies had covered it up. But Zelda has a really good line. She says, the compensation you receive is for the harm done.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
And it's only because there is no better mechanism available to us at this point. Yeah. Restitution or is financial. Some people try restorative justice, or they go through mediation and but very rarely people who are predatory they don't think they've done anything wrong. Harvey Weinstein still claims he never did anything wrong.
Right. The same as Bill Cosby back in the day, right? Like,
restitution, financial compensation is the one tool we have. So the money you're receiving is to say, I'm sorry this happened to you. We're acknowledging it. This is our restitution. The NDA is an added layer of what we often refer to as institutional betrayal, right? You've reported. You've been told that, yes, we believe you. You're given this money, but the one thing you're never allowed to do is ever talk to anybody again. And some of these NDAs have included things like you can't talk to a counselor.
Wow.
So how do you get past
You can't talk to a counselor.
Can't talk to a therapist.
You can't grieve and you can't
right?
get yourself through this.
Yeah. And I think one of my colleagues, Christina Fifield, has been very front and center. She was an advocate with the Mass Casualty Commission. She's done a lot. She's talked a lot about this publicly. She often says one of the things that's also really terrible is that if in a defamation case or if you do break your NDA, they will try and use your counseling records to prove that you've broken your NDA.
Oh, wow. Now, I got to ask you this, because I just think I always think Canada's better. Bias, but honestly, and when it comes to NDAs, are we on par with what America's doing, or is Canada better or worse?
Way worse. Way worse.
Really? So Canada is worse than the U.S.
by a long shot. So right now, Prince Edward Island is the only jurisdiction that's passed legislation to ban NDAs.
Okay. Props to PEI.
Yeah. Small but mighty. We'll take it wherever we can.
No, brilliant. Yeah.
But the thing is that. In the States, I think we're now at 27 states, including Idaho. Is it Idaho? That's a state, right? Or is that a city? Yeah.
So the Democratic states in the U.S., basically.
No, a lot of Republican,
Republican states, too, are getting rid of NDAs. Amazing.
That's shocking.
Yeah. 27 states, plus federally, there's a ban on federal employees being forced to sign non-disclosure agreements in cases of discrimination.
Amazing. So we're dragging our ass in Canada on this.
Ireland as a country has passed a bill. And then the UK right now is debating it as well. So right now, Canada is actually really lagging, where it's really shockingly bad, especially considering that, we have had some of the worst examples of where this has been used to cover up. Like Hockey Canada was such a mess. We thought at that point for sure the federal government and the governments would all...
I think a lot of people thought Hockey Canada was just going to implode. That was going to be it.
Yeah.
It's amazing how resilient these organizations are, right? The one thing you'll notice is that you're not hearing a lot about what's happening with that investigation.
No, nothing.
And
since you brought it up today, I didn't think about it till I was, read that whenever.
And that's a nonprofit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
So that woman can't speak. She's been NDA'd.
Yeah.
So she'll never be able to tell her story unless they release her from it.
Well, yeah, and your friend was recently released from it.
Yeah, yes. So I got notified in November that all of a sudden Dalhousie had changed their sexualized violence policy on their website, and that all of a sudden there was this line included that said, we will not force victims of sexual assault to sign an NDA. Not that they won't do it, that they just won't force them to.
Okay. Does that mean they reverse the past in the sense of other people could? No. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, there's been no official statement from Dal around what they're really doing, and they've done it very secretly.
I mean, they should be a leader in this.
You would think.
Yeah.
Especially considering Kim Brooks, who is the president of the university, is involved with a project called the Watershed Project, legal project, and they in 2017 made a very strong declarative statement that NDAs were being abused with victims of assault and harassment. Right. So I don't know what she's doing or who's giving her advice, but it's bad legal advice. It's bad PR advice. I would encourage her, if she listens to this podcast, to change her mind.
We'll add her in this one.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. You feel free to reach out.
What we've had three Dal employees, professors, on this podcast.
Folks from Dal on the show, yeah. Absolutely.
We got a little bit of attention from Dal here.
Okay. Yeah.
So
maybe you'll have better luck than we have. They won't even meet with us. So.
That sucks.
It does. I think it's. So to me, this is like this. It's part of a bigger systemic problem, which is like, I think there's a lot of PR firms in this city and in other cities, and a lot of lawyers and PR firms tell organizations, just be a gray rock, just disappear into the background, ignore the problem until it disappears. Because, like you said, people have forgotten about Hockey Canada, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. The longer you just ignore the problem, well, yes, the general public moves on, but the person who's the victim and their family and friends have to live with the outcomes.
There is a science. I don't know if I know you do, but I don't know if you ever watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yes.
But they have the 24-hour news cycle,
yes.
That episode, and it's like, honestly, it's true. People's memories are so short.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, it's crazy. Like, even just now, I mean, we're in the middle of political stuff going on with our country.
Trump, yeah.
Not even just Trump. I'm talking about just our federal stuff.
With our federal
we went from, no joke, 2 months ago, the Liberals and the approval rating being at 16% to now, just the poll today, is at 42%.
Yep.
And the Conservatives are down in the mid to low 30s. Mm. Like, there's already like a 7-point spread or whatever now.
Depends on the poll, but yeah.
All of them now, man.
All of them now?
Seriously, if you look at the ones today, they vary, but the Liberals are in the lead in every single one of them at this point. Yeah. So that's just 2 months ago from people literally saying, like,
but you say 24 hours news cycle, Donald Trump, like, oh my gosh, it's just, the things the bills he writes.
He's a machine gun of a mess.
Unbelievable.
But he's, people think it's chaotic, but it is strategic, right? Like,
it is.
I wrote about this on one of my Substacks, like flooding the zone or like overwhelming people, and he's really good at distraction, right? Like dangling this shiny thing over here and distracting you with the stupidity. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, there's a bunch of legal things happening that he's keeping you. Right. He has no problem keeping the attention on himself while all these nefarious, like, the thing is that what really scares me with politicians is it's not the politicians themselves, the really loud, bombastic ones. It's their staffers and the policymakers, the bureaucrats, but more like the
like chief of staff and stuff like that you're talking about. Yeah,
I would just tell you, for me, here in Nova Scotia, there is a really disturbing level of centralization of power happening within the Premier's office. Whether it's the Conservative Party, the NDP, or the Liberals, I don't like it. There's a lack of democratic process around how decision making is happening. People. I actually heard, I can't remember who was talking about this, is that we forget that there's a need for friction. Like the reason why there's a difference between private sector and government is that friction is important to slow things down, just enough for you to be able to have a look at it and make sure that you're not making the wrong decision.
It's a sober second thought type of thing. Right?
Well, when you're a venture capitalist, you're a tech founder, whatever, iteration and changing things all the time. Chaos can sometimes be a really foundational part of like building something. But when we're talking about the institutions that impact people, you have to be careful and methodical about how it happens. And the reason why consultation is important is that the people who are most impacted by the decisions you're making should have the most feedback.
Yeah.
That is not easily accessible. I'm sorry, I'm totally distracted. There is a cat on a leash.
We're at Oxford.
I know, Oxford Tap Room.
That's a really great segue.
Sorry.
Just to quickly say that we actually are at the Oxford Tap Room, and actually Liz was actually saying earlier how much she likes this place because they let pets here.
Yeah.
And then there's a cat that comes in on a leash, and I mean,
I love this so much. I'm sorry.
And the other thing is I brought popcorn up for us just before this episode, and it's just killing me staring at it here while we're talking.
Oh, you can eat it. Yeah, no, for sure.
And just quickly, I mean, like last week you had the matcha, and they didn't have it. It's already all gone, so I didn't get to try it. So I had their like it's not a spruce beer, but it's an evergreen beer.
That's what I got too.
Oh, you got the evergreen?
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
What did you get?
The nut brown.
Oh, that's
ale.
That's a
I don't-
What do you think of the evergreen?
I like it.
Okay.
This is my second one, actually.
Yeah? Okay.
I had one while I was waiting for you.
I can tell.
Okay. They also have the nut brown, but they also have the PB&J. I had that last week, and that's their raspberry wheat and their nut brown mixed together. It tastes like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Oh my god.
It's really good.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry, that was a real wide swing from one area.
That was a really
to
wide
another.
swing.
Yeah. So like people listening to this are like, and then she
This
started talking
popcorn
about a
break is
cat.
brought to you by Garrison.
But I guess kind of rewinding back to the
And now.
before the cat situation. But so I mean, kind of I guess back to like how people have short memories and stuff. And
Yeah, like my brain. Like I'm like a squirrel.
100%. That's like it's like kitty. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with the whether it be politically or whether it be events in whatever, like people tend to forget. People were literally saying, like, fuck Trudeau and all this stuff, and now all of a sudden Trudeau's gone, and all of a sudden
Yeah,
it's
that
like,
poor guy,
boom.
whoever's making those flags is out of business, I think, at this point, maybe.
100%.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think he's done
100%.
all right. He's done all right.
He's done well.
Yeah, he had a solid
Good
4
run.
years.
Yeah, he did okay. Yeah. There's one of those, actually, I used to ride a bike on the Salt Marsh, and there was one firmly planted in the middle of like the water that you
really?
couldn't get to.
There's one outside, like where my kid took the bus.
Yeah.
Go on a bus
Like, oh my
stop, and I was like,
gosh.
oh man. It was
Yeah,
tough.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a vibe for sure. It's a choice.
100%.
Oh
Yeah.
boy, yeah.
I won't go there.
I like to because of who they are as a people. I like to make the joke that they've now created their own sexual orientation. They're just attracted to Trudeau.
This episode is brought to you by Camilla Najat with Exit Realty Metro.
Camilla Najat is an experienced real estate agent who prides herself in finding the perfect home for her clients. Camilla can help you with a comparative market analysis to help determine the value of your home if you're planning on selling, or help you determine the going rate for the neighborhood you're moving into. She can also work with you at your pace.
You can reach Camilla by calling 902-880-8429 or email camilla@exitmetro.ca.
Also, you can find her on Facebook at Camilla Najat, Exit Realty Metro.
That's true. Well, yeah, now he's apparently, I think I saw a picture of him shopping at
Canadian Tire.
Canadian Tire.
I think everybody wants to saw
It's
that.
the most single divorced father move of all time.
Let's go buy that Roomba.
No, that's the best place to get your kitchenware, though. I tell you,
It is.
Canadian Tire is a good spot.
Are you guys sponsored by Canadian Tire?
No. We
Canadian
should
Tire,
be.
you need to sponsor the podcast.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Listen, we could do that. It's
Yes,
just,
we'll combine forces between my fundraising and your podcast. We'll be all right.
there
Sounds
you go.
good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also I wanted to talk a little bit kind of about you. I know we talked about things, but you've been involved in also just a lot of speaking to the cat. That's where I was going. Thank you. Speaking of the cat,
Good segue.
Because
Cats,
you were also involved in the
SPCA.
SPCA. So you've been involved in a lot of like things where you're kind of looking out for other people, whether it be the SPCA, the Charity Report, the QE2 Foundation, and you were also like you did stuff with Dal, I think fundraising, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yep. I have been around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really have kind of seems like you've dedicated much of your life to kind of looking out for others.
Oh, well, that's a nice way of putting it. So I think we were just talking with a gentleman downstairs. So I did my undergrad at Dow in political science. And
that was early Pete, just in case anyone wanted to know.
Yeah.
She met early Pete. He's a character.
okay,
Maritime
yes.
legend, early Pete.
Yeah.
Great guy.
So we were chatting. He's infinitely younger than I am. I think I'm a good decade ahead of him. But Yeah, so I did my undergrad at Dal, and I had this big plan. I wanted to go work for the UN. And I was going to do, all kinds of fun things and save the world. And I actually got really lucky. I was doing my master's in international public relations, and I was a huge dork. So I also did Model UNs. And one of the women that was speaking at a conference we had actually worked at the World Food Program. And she offered me an internship for a summer. So I went down to New York for 4 months, worked for them, found out I hate PR, mainly because I can't do anything other than tell the truth.
Yeah, that's the opposite of what PR does.
It really is. No offense. I know some of my friends are PR people, but no offense. But yes, sanitizing conversation to make it more palatable for the general public wasn't my idea of a good time. So I ended up being responsible for the Walk to End Hunger in New York City. Oh, cool. And I found that I really loved the combination of doing something tangible and then seeing the results in real time.
How the hell did you get roped into New York City helping with that organization?
Well, I got this internship at the World Food Program, and their headquarters is in New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I had to connect the dots there.
That's okay.
That's super interesting.
No, it's okay. I was at a Model UN conference, nerding out, and the speaker offered me a job, which was great. So
cool.
You must have done well at the UN, Model UN.
Oh, yeah. You must
have crushed it, yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty, I think the only thing I ever got to do was like Ecuador, so I didn't have a whole lot of power, but you can be creative. So I mean, from there, I just realized fundraising was my jam. And I loved being able to tell a story and then convincing people to give to that cause. Mm-hmm. What I didn't end up loving was there was this really insidious dark side, the two sides of the coin, if we're going to go for the Star Wars.
Yeah.
The dark side and the light side. Yeah. The dark side of fundraising is that there's a lot of people with a lot of money and a lot of power who take advantage of the situation, because fundraising is a highly feminized profession. A lot of young women who really care about things, and a lot of the donors were older and had a lot of influence, and they take advantage of the situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I had many experiences where I thought I was having a conversation with people about the work I was doing, and it ended up not being that. And
interesting.
I've been assaulted. I've been harassed. I remember we used to do events for one organization up at Fox Harbor, and half the staff were basically told, this is what you do and keep to yourselves, because by the end of the night, all of these men will get quite gropey.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know it's funny, it's something that everyone knew about, but nobody really talked about. And then when, and people have different feelings about it with Me Too. Me Too, certainly, I think there are parts of it that were harmful. The naming and shaming of things definitely, I don't think, helped men feel that this was a liberatory movement.
We talked a little about that.
Yeah.
Well, she was talking the difference about, and I'll let you explain
it.
But the ahead. Difference, no, it's your thing. So, but she was explaining the difference. It was the difference between shame and
guilt.
Guilt. Thank you.
Sure.
So she was explaining that. So you can explain that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the big problems with movements, any movement, whether we're talking about racial equity, gender equity, whatever, is that sometimes we focus too much on guilt. Like, you should feel bad that this happened. Guilt is not a healthy or helpful emotion to have, because most people can't move past guilt into actual action.
Okay.
Feeling, guilt can be a useful emotion. I got to redo this.
Okay.
All right.
Let's try again.
From again. Okay. So guilt can actually be a useful emotion, because people, they often talk about like feeling guilty about being a white person and the privileges you have. Guilt is something that you can say, okay, I feel guilty about this, but I maybe I didn't have any say in how I was born and where I started, but I can also be a part of the solution. Shame is the emotion that's not helpful. Shame doesn't help anyone do anything. People that feel shame, it means that they're not talking through it. They're not working through the problem. I think some of the problems with liberatory movements is that sometimes there's a lot of shame involved, right? Like shame on you. Shame,
big time. That's a huge problem. And I think that was something that really made a lot of people left go more center or even more right over the last 5 years.
I agree. Over the last 5 years,
right?
I
Big
do
time.
feel that, and that's when you said that, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
100%, because
Yeah, you got like there was parts where I mean, I'll talk more about America than Canada here for a second, but where folks on the left side there, I mean, they got pushed right. I mean, they weren't left enough, they weren't upset enough, or they weren't doing all of the things or checking all of the boxes.
The performative stuff doesn't help, right?
Right.
It's and I think that's why DEI has collapsed so spectacularly,
Yeah.
is because
And that sucks too.
it does suck, because I think there are some really important things that were happening, but when it becomes a check mark or a checkbox that you're trying to do as a
There you go.
business
Yeah.
versus a values alignment or trying to change culture,
yeah.
I think we're having the same problem with gender-based violence here in this province, and shifting the narrative is that I don't think a lot of men see themselves as part of the solution. And I was saying downstairs, it's like racism can't be fixed just by black people saying that it exists. White people have to want to change the culture in order for racism to change. Or
Agree
the
with
way.
that. Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing, right? I think we have these spaces and places where women are...
It's tough because what you just said there, I could jump on that even. Like you said, white people need to fix it, and I'm like, well, everybody needs to fix it, like in a sense.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. Everyone needs to fix it.
But that's the trouble when we start talking about these issues. It's like nothing you can say is perfectly right.
No,
Like,
we need space
because
for imperfection.
It's really tough. We need a lot more space for, like, did these people? I mean, I'm someone here. Here's a flaw about myself. There's a 90% chance I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. And I like you, and I'm a good person. I don't want to pronounce anyone's name wrong. But I'll pronounce everything wrong that I might see in the run of a day.
He's going to call you Linda later. Or something.
That's fine.
Names
That's
are-
actually my mom's name.
Oh,
So
is
that's
it?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you can call me
I'm
Linda if you
terrible
want
with
to.
names. I'm terrible with this. But these aren't things where I'm a bad person, right? These aren't things where I ever want to do any malicious harm to anyone. These are things that I got to work out, maybe pick up a phonics book or a memorization course.
But also at the same time, you can just be humble about it and just be like, oh, yeah, I messed up, right? It's no different than if you like misgender something.
Right.
You say something wrong and then someone corrects you and you're just like, oh, I'm sorry.
But the problem at though was like people weren't getting the chance to mess up. There were so many instances we saw in the last few years where people got pushed into being labeled as something they were not, and then they began to almost live that role consequentially. They got pushed into a corner and they were told they were something that they didn't feel that they were, but they said, okay, if that's what you think I am, that's what I'll be.
I think that's the case for some people.
So
yeah, I think that's.
I think it certainly happened more than once.
And I think like, and that's one of the things is like, you know, I consider myself like, I don't know. I always like to say I'm in the middle, but in some cases I'm very left on some things. But it's one of those sometimes where it's like sometimes you're just like not left enough. And I'm not someone I'm stubborn enough that, you know, you can't push me anywhere. But I've seen people who I was like, I thought I was a little bit more aligned with, and then all of a sudden I'm like, they start saying things, and I'm just kind of like, eee. And,
Yeah, I mean, that
and
gut
I think they
feeling.
got pushed, right? They got, it was like, someone was like, you're not left enough, so you're just right. Right? And then all of a sudden they're just kind of like, well, this side's not really treating me all that well, and, you know, I'm just going to go over here, I guess.
This episode is brought to you by Strategy Up. Strategy Up is a business consulting firm led by Mark Zerka, who has over 20 years' experience in building commercial strategies that will up your game, organize your teams, increase your productivity, and grow your business.
Whether you're a construction company looking to grow your revenue or a busy restaurant owner just trying to keep the doors open, Strategy Up can help. Strategy Up's boutique-style consultations will help you improve business process across nearly any industry.
Being a successful entrepreneur does not mean you have to be an expert in everything. Strategy Up specializes in building a relationship with you. Once pain points in the business are realized, Strategy Up will introduce process and technology that will power up your game to the next level.
A successful business requires investment. Your next step towards growth starts now. Email info@mystrategyup.com for a free business discovery call. Up your game with Strategy Up.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like we were talking about this downstairs as well. I think I think your friend Pete was saying this, and I think it's true, is that the right's done a really good job of creating a bigger tent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the left has done a really bad job of inclusion, ironically. And it has been a bit of an Olympics to kind of like who's the most virtuous, who's the most.
Oh, yeah. And so, I mean, that's a challenge to the left. It's like if someone is on your team and they're rooting for you, let them in.
Yeah.
Right?
And in perfection. I mean, I think my husband's a really good example of that. I mean, so he's grew up in rural PEI in Rustico. His parents are coming from a small town, you know, and he lives with somebody who espouses very vocal values around certain things. And but the difference is that we're in relationship with one another.
Yes.
And when I say in relationship, I mean like, so we're doing that right now. We're building a relationship together by having a conversation. It's so easy on social media to not talk to one another. We yell at each other.
Yes.
So I think what we're missing is the relationship building piece. I think what the right's done a really good job of is building relationships.
Yes, I agree with that. Right?
And it's a thing that I think is really missing. And I think also Pete, I feel like Pete should be on this podcast.
He's going to listen to this. He told me.
Pete's going to be on a future show
Pete,
for sure.
Here you go. So, he was also saying, you know, like, what's the response? And there isn't one right now. It's just fracturing, right?
Yeah.
Fracturing into smaller pieces. And I think, you know, people say center is not far enough left, but I think, you know, like there are a lot of people that are just not comfortable with maybe being where you're at, but where are they? Like, where are they in the journey? There's a journey for all of us, right? And it's, so to me, gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, we're not going to solve it in this province unless we are having these conversations with men.
What are the first steps for men, do you think? Or is, that's a hard
No, I think
ask,
this is a great starting point. You're both offering a platform and an audience of people that might listen to this who may not have had this opinion before, and then hearing this will be like, you know what? Liz LeClair is not a raging lunatic who's like running around. Because I think that's the other thing. Is that,
I don't know. No, I'm just joking. I'm just having fun.
She's been nothing but crazy the whole time on here.
It's Linda. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing is in politics, it's easy for politicians to paint the opposition as fringe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
So I think if we can center things in relationship, like this is about relationships that we have with our employers, relationships we have with our colleagues and the people around us. Like, how can you have a relationship built when you can't talk about what happened to you? That for me has always been at the core of this.
That's the core of those NDAs for sure.
It isolates
how do you ever
people.
solve the problem?
It isolates people.
Yeah.
It is putting them in a dark corner and saying, just go away.
Yeah.
That doesn't help people heal.
No.
Yeah.
And like when we are like kind of first kind of connected and we were trying to get you to come on the show, we were, I haven't seen much really in the last couple months, but up to that point, there had been a lot of. I don't know if it's. I mean, one is a lot. One is too many. But
oh no, there's a lot.
There was. It seemed like there was a lot of. Yeah, you saw like spousal murders.
Yep.
That happened. Just in like a 6-8 month span or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And actually, in one of them was. A past guest and someone who's affiliated with us was Steve. I was actually with him on his day one of his 99 journey. And I was sitting there at a Moosehead game with him and he got a text. And one of the victims was that woman in Yarmouth.
Yeah.
He knew her. He got a text saying, like, this is what happened. Like, I guess her ex-husband just showed up at her house and shot her and then shot himself.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
it was. So basically,
so I mean, going back. So what's the problem here? We got untreated mental health problems, probably deep with that dude.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
You know,
I think you have to be a little bit like
history of family violence.
Yeah.
Right.
He probably witnessed it when he was a child.
And I mean, are there chances of? And I'm not calling this. I don't know the case, but like, you know, are police taking these calls seriously when they happen? Right.
A lot of women don't report to police.
Yeah.
Because frankly, you know.
Well, they come, they go.
Well, they also are like, if they didn't put a hands on you, we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean that's yeah. So what do you do there, right? So you like, how does this person get out when they're trapped and they don't know anyone?
We don't create a lot of spaces for women to say this feels dangerous, but I also love this person and I still want to figure out how to help them.
Right.
Sure.
We create places for women to flee to. We create programs for them to get treatment, but the men end up either in jail.
And like, you know, that's a tough thing to flee and leave your life. Because that's her life too, right?
Exactly.
You know, why do you have to leave?
Especially if you have children.
guy or whatever, right? Like, why do you have to leave, right? Like, that doesn't make sense.
And honestly, like, in these types of situations, like, is jail really the right place for them?
No, I mean, like, rehabilitation doesn't happen in jail.
If you ever wondered if you allowed dogs here.
I think the dog just saw the cat, actually.
And we're having another popcorn break here.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel that, like, if you have, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are definitely just some guys out there that are just a piece of shit.
There's generally pieces of shit human beings everywhere. Yeah.
I know, but I'm talking about,
I know what you
like,
mean, though,
in 99.9% of the case, it's men who are abusing women.
Yeah.
And
statistically.
So realistically, I mean, yes, there are probably just guys out there that are just pieces of shit. However, there are probably a good portion of men who need help. And they don't know how to do it, and they don't know how to, they don't have emotional intelligence, whatever, right?
Yep.
And I would argue that putting them in a jail cell with criminals is probably not going to fix this problem.
But I think it's symptomatic again of like what we were just talking about. Like NDAs are one way, but the other way of getting rid of a problem is locking people up and saying put them here, and then we don't have to see them and deal with them. It's the same thing, right? It's the easier, less complicated, but infinitely more harmful choice.
Right.
So this is going to be, and I don't know how your listeners are going to feel about this. So if you read the 3,000-page report, and if you read a lot about the mass casualty, Gabriel Wortman, a person whose name does not get mentioned very often, he experienced severe abuse as a child. He witnessed horrific things, and I'm not making an excuse for what he did.
Yeah.
But people call people monsters, and we forget that monsters come from something. Something has happened to someone.
Monsters are created.
They are created.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a child at one time. I grew up in Scarborough, Ontario when Paul Bernardo was on the loose.
Oh, wow.
So I was 14
crazy.
years old when he was going around grabbing girls.
Terrifying.
It was, but also too, like you look at his upbringing, and there's a story there. I'm not saying that these people, it's not an excuse for behavior. But I think we often forget it's easier for us to point at something and say this person's a horrible monster of a human being than to say what are all the ways in which we failed everyone for this to happen.
Do you think that that's people's way of like kind of saying like almost like disassociating, saying like that can never be me because that person's a monster?
Of course.
Yeah. But like, I mean, what I think they should do is go back in time and get people at a younger age. Help men find inner peace.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Teach
a huge
them
thing.
about
And that's
talking about
something
feelings.
This guy right here found that himself. He found that through reading. He found that by accident almost, right?
Yeah.
How do I calm down my angry thoughts? I want to punch that guy right now. But like I never wanted to be abused with the women, but I, carry anger with me, right? We all do, right? How do you see through that? How do you understand your own emotions a little bit better so you don't go out and you hurt somebody?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I heard something on Instagram just not like, I think it was like 2 days ago, and like I think I maybe even sent it to you. And take this with the right context. I do think it's relative.
I will take it with the assumption that this is coming from a good place.
Everyone listening, like, take this from the right context. It speaks to something though, and what it was this guy who said that men like are associated with two emotions: anger and fine.
Wasn't it Bill Burr?
Was it Bill Burr?
It was Bill Burr.
No.
Yeah, it's brand new Hulu special. It just came out last
Is that
week.
what it is?
Yeah, he said there's only two.
Okay, it was. Yeah. So I think I started watching because Bill Burr's one of my favorites.
Fine.
Yeah.
So,
I'm allowed to be
anger and
angry.
fine. Yeah. But because he said something like, because basically he's like all those other emotions. He's like, we all feel those other emotions.
Yeah.
He's like, but we're not allowed to talk about them because that's gay.
Yes.
Right. And take that with the right
No,
context.
I know, but that's the problem.
It is the problem,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why is it like? It just makes me really sad because I think what the deaths of the last 6 months have been has been an expression of pain of our society. I think as Nova Scotians, we really have to sit and look at the last 9 people that have died due to intimate partner violence. And okay, so I should also say, like, sometimes people find this really confusing. Like, what's the difference between gender-based violence, intimate partner violence, domestic violence? So gender-based violence is like the big umbrella that we use for everything: harassment, assault, catcalling, whatever. All of this stuff can fit under that umbrella. Intimate partner violence is somebody that you consider to be your closest, like a partner, like a spouse,
of some sort,
or whatever. Domestic violence is sort of interchangeable, but there's also a term that we now use called femicide, which is that women are being targeted specifically.
Right.
Because one of the deaths actually was a man that killed his mother of the 9.
Okay.
So like, it's not just partners; it can be children, male children. And I think again, it's this death that we're seeing is is a sort of an outcome of unexpressed anger and disappointment and hurt and feeling disconnected from society. And we need men to heal, because until men heal, these deaths are going to continue to happen. And I would love to figure out how to be a part of that, because I want men to be healthier. I have 2 teenage boys. I want them both to be able to express their feelings. I don't want them to feel like the only way that they can really get out their frustration is to either hit something or hit somebody.
Right.
You know, like it's, how can you cry? How can you just like, can you cry? Can you cry about something that's hurt you? That's okay.
Yeah.
It's not. So I'm putting air quotes here, gay.
Yeah.
It's such an antiquated, outdated, and I think, you know, it's also like the fear of the other is such a big proponent of how we, like the way the trans community is being isolated and sort of targeted. It's just an easy way for, again, sort of like,
it's I when I see the trans community like targeted, I see you're seeking somewhere to put that anger or that, you know, and we all, anger and misunderstanding are always aligned.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the
and
thing.
fear and
they
all
don't
that
understand
stuff.
Because they don't, like,
you know, you never grew up that way. You don't feel like putting on a dress today. What does they want to do it? Like, you know, like that's the core thought, right? Like, you know, that's where it starts. And then you get weird, and then you're a straight man and you're scared. You're like, oh God, like, you know, I don't want to accidentally take a man home. Like that's what a straight guy thinks, right? You know.
I appreciate you both being so honest about
but that's how a straight guy is like wired, right? You know, and so then you're like, you got to take some time and really see and understand this is way beyond you and your archetype of thought and the way your genetics were built and the way you were designed, right? This is somebody with a completely different pile of problems from you, right?
And also just someone who wants to live their life
in
the most authentic way possible.
Would you rather see them not be upside of the earth? Are you really that evil?
Can I ask you a question, though? Like,
sure.
Do you feel like it's a little bit of jealousy? That,
jealousy?
Like, straight men are seeing trans people and being like, wow, this person's choosing to do something really brave I might not be able to do?
And I sincerely, I mean, I appreciate that question. Me, personally, I don't think I'm jealous.
Okay.
And I think I think that, in all honesty, I feel really sorry for someone that doesn't get to be their true self.
Okay.
Like, you know, I know how hard it is to be yourself when you're a straight guy, right?
Yeah, he's a white Newfoundlander who wanted to be a rapper.
There you go. That's hard enough, right? I got my own complex set of
I can't even
things
get
to navigate
with
through.
That one, yeah.
So there you go. But like, you know, so if it's hard for me just to navigate through life as who I am, I was born, I always wanted to be bigger and be good at football. That was not a skill I ever acquired. Like, you know, things like that were challenging for me. I mean, I couldn't imagine having the challenges that someone faces that felt they were born in the wrong body. Yeah. Right?
That's a big thing for me. It's like I'm always been kind of like, even though I never understood the trans mentality of what they have to go through and what I didn't always understand that, I still always like felt like I stood for bodily autonomy. Right? I still felt that you should always have that right to just live your life. You know, we have one life to live and you should be happy and, you know, want to exist. And the case is that many of them don't because they can't be themselves.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's the same kind of narrative that comes around when women wear certain clothing. It's like, you know, the whole thing when you've been assaulted, well, what were you wearing and how did you behave?
Yeah, that question's been around forever.
It keeps projecting the problem onto the victim and not onto the person who. I think we have to sort of change the script around. Okay, well, not finger pointing, but what is it? Why do we feel so comfortable perpetuating these stereotypes about all of these people, right? And you asked me about intersectionality. What is it? And so. I would say, like, I came from a place, like, I grew up in Scarborough in a very white, predominantly white neighborhood, right? And, but surrounded by lots of communities of culture and different communities of, you know, different people with different backgrounds. But I was always very much in a white family, living in a white neighborhood, kind of white picket fence, whatever. And I always thought feminism was just about women. Like, how do we change men? get men to understand. And it wasn't until I started really spending time in community with Black women and women of color, trans women, that they were like, okay, you're a woman, but you're a white woman with white privilege, right? Yes. So there's a layer there, right? That you take that and you change the color of your skin. You cannot not be Black.
Right.
You cannot not be, whatever. And it's, so when I say intersectional feminist, the reason I put that there is it's not for people, straight white men, to be like, okay, great, she's an intersectional feminist. It's more for me signaling to the people that I know need to see that I'm not just a white feminist, which is like a white woman being like, oh, I want the vote and the right to do this, but fuck all you people. I'm good. I got through the door. I'm done. Yeah. It's about keeping that door open and bringing everyone through with you, but at the same time, I have a responsibility with the privilege as I have to help share that story and to explain that. I don't always do a great job of it. I fuck up all the time. I make lots of mistakes. We all do. But the whole thing is, if we don't keep talking about it or being in relationship with one another, then nothing ever changes. I think one of the things that's really hard for me is the people who have power who refuse to sit down and have these conversations. Yeah. Right. Politicians.
So leaders. Back to the root of where we started this conversation. Like way back.
Actually, just before we do that, I just want to mention something, because you talked about how the different relationships that people have with violence within that, and it can be mother, father, grandmother, whatever. I just wanted to bring up, because we were going to be doing this like a month ago, which was right around Nova Scotia's holiday in February, which is Heritage Day, which not Family Day. It's Heritage Day, which is an awesome holiday that we have, which celebrates Nova Scotians and our history. And this year was Nora Bernard. And if you don't know who Nora Bernard is, I suggest you go read up. But, the quick Coles notes is she was an Indigenous woman who was involved in the residential schools, and she was actually a really, from Nova Scotia, driving force that brought forth the Truth and Reconciliation, when they started digging up the bodies and stuff like that. Like, she was a big part of that movement. And why I bring it up now is because she was actually murdered by her grandson in her home.
Wow.
Yeah.
When?
Decade ago, I think.
Wow. I think so,
So it was maybe 12.
Holy shit.
10 to 12 years ago.
Yeah, it's untreated trauma comes out in horrific ways. And I think the generations of trauma that Indigenous communities have suffered.
That's what made me, when you said that, that's what made me kind of think and connected that with that holiday. So anyway, back to what you were going to say.
No, simple question for me, just NDAs. So what's our first stop in eliminating these? Do you think? What could everybody do? Or what could people like us do? Kind of help say, hey, look, we want to do what other countries and provinces are doing and eliminate these.
I appreciate that question. There's a couple things. So you can go to Can't Buy My Silence, our website. We have a business pledge. So if you wanted to ask your business to make a pledge to commit to not using. So I just want to be really clear with yourselves and the listeners as well. So we're not asking to ban them altogether. What we're saying is they shouldn't be used in these specific cases.
100%. Right? Yeah, like it's different. Like you were saying at the Silicon Valley, if I'm working on the new Apple phone, I should, I can't go share that with Google.
So we are absolutely. So we've asked the chambers of commerce and businesses to consider signing the pledge. Again, this is not about finger pointing. It's just saying we know we may have used them in the past, but we're going to commit not to use them this way moving forward. The other is that you can call your MLA, and there is a bill. I think it's Bill 14 right now. The NDB have resubmitted the legislation, which outlines how we would regulate the misuse of NDAs. And somebody sort of said to me, why does it need to be legislation? So to me, it's a lot like smoking or like seatbelts, right? We knew that they weren't good.
Right.
It wasn't good for us not to wear seatbelts, and it wasn't good for us to smoke. I mean, we're sitting here right now today in a bar, and it's not filled with smoke. When I was here in the 90s and going to university, this place would have been full of cigarette smoke. So people had the option to go smoke outside, but they didn't because it was easier for them to do it. And when we talk about friction, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we need friction in order to make something less palatable so that people will change their behavior. Right now, it's still so easy to use NDAs, and so many people are still not knowing what their rights are. it's easy for a lawyer to put this in front of somebody and say, okay, just sign this and we'll give you the compensation for what's happened.
Yeah.
What we need is that to be regulated, because it's not changing fast enough. Right. Every day that we let this happen there's more and more and more and more people.
So can we put a link on the description
Absolutely.
if you want to pledge, or if you want to, is there something where like people can just sign up and have their name on something that they're against this?
Yes. Yeah. We have a petition that we're trying to circulate. The other thing that you can do is just talk to people about it.
Yeah.
And share the podcast.
Share it with your friends, share awareness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, also just like, I really need the Premier is the decision maker on this. He's the one that's holding this back.
But what a beautiful thing we got rid of this in Nova Scotia and joined PEI.
Yeah.
Right? The leader of Canada.
Well, we are in conversation with the New Brunswick government.
There you go. I don't like being second to New Brunswick on anything. So
I give PEI a pass.
Let's put PEI is pretty cool, man.
Yeah,
they're all right. You know, they're all right. They're little. So they
my
get things
my
done
family,
fast.
my in-laws and everybody.
We can't lose the New Brunswick on this,
we
right,
absolutely
guys?
can't.
So Nova Scotians, this is a Nova Scotia-based show.
We'll talk. We'll talk to Tim. He was on this show.
Figure it out.
We'll talk to him.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
You know what? If Tim would take 10 minutes to sit down with us and have a conversation, I think his attitude on this whole thing would change. I think
He's a brilliant guy. I don't doubt it wouldn't.
I think there's a lot of lawyers and PR people giving him advice right now that's bad advice, and I think he needs to hear directly from the people impacted by it. So,
in all of my interactions with him, he seems like a pretty decent human being. And,
I would say at this point, people think I'm enemy number one of the Premier, and the only reason I'm talking into the internet is because he won't sit down with me face to face. I think if he would sit down with me face to face, he wouldn't find me so awful. So,
I found you pretty nice so far. I've enjoyed this conversation.
All right, well, there you can.
We'll vouch for you.
All right.
So, speaking about, I guess, onto political and stuff, and policy and stuff. One question I want to ask you to get your kind of expertise on is how would you coach the general population to identify like dog whistle type policies?
Dog whistle. Oh.
Yeah.
Explain a dog whistle type policy there.
Well, okay, so dog whistle is basically. Dogs can only hear it versus people, right? So when they use dog whistle, it's MAGA is a dog whistle. People say, make America great again, right? And they're like, and everyone's like, yeah, let's make America great again. That sounds like a good idea. America should be great. But then you ask yourself, well, when was America great?
Right.
And you go like, well,
when there was slavery?
Well, exactly. That's the thing. It's like, so what was it? Was it when you couldn't have same-sex marriage? Was it when black people couldn't go there?
Like how far back are we going?
How far back are we going? Like when was America great? Some might argue it was, between 2008 and 2016 kind of thing, right? That might have been the time when it was great. I don't know. But, I feel, and I don't know if you agree, but I feel even with all the turmoil, I still think we live in probably the best time that we've ever lived in terms of the ability for people to just be themselves. And I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't remember the name of the book. There's a guy. Oh, sorry, I just hit the mic. He wrote about the fact that humans have a negativity bias. And
I've heard that before.
We always think that we're living in the worst time, but statistically, we are living in the.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're on the precipice, though. So, the next generation, if we don't change some things, especially with global warming and obesity and other things, they're not going to have as long a lifespan. And dog whistle. Okay, so good example. Look, I'm not, and for anyone who's a conservative out there, Pierre probably have, whether or not I agree with him, I think one of the things that worries me is how much he is playing to a base of social conservatives.
Yeah.
When he was asked about genders, he said, well, there's only two that I know of.
Right.
Male and female.
Right.
Well, that was him playing to a base. That wasn't him.
Yep.
Endocrinologists, pediatricians, scientists around the world have all agreed that there's fluidity with gender depending on, and so that's one example. I mean, I think other things, how we talk about who is a freedom fighter, the Ukrainians, and who is considered a terrorist, Palestinians.
Right. Yeah.
I think, the ways in which we use words. I mean, the way I just mentioned about Gabriel Wortman, we call him a monster. The words we choose to use are can be red flags. I would say on the other side, when you say dog whistle, there's some really dangerous things happening right now with Italy and Germany. with really far right movements.
I was really shocked to learn about Italy recently, about some of the really shocked. My wife and I were talking about it's like very right,
and also too,
like, you can't like they're getting rid of IVF. If you're a gay couple, like you can't adopt, like you can't even do surrogacy.
Yeah.
Like they totally changing things.
And also,
couldn't believe it.
And I think there's another misconception that happens is that often we think that men are responsible for these really far right policies. The leader in Italy is a woman.
Yeah.
Some of the leaders, like in France, the very, very far right movement is led by women.
Right.
So women are just as complicit in these pushes. I mean, white women in large voting blocks voted Trump in.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not men. Men are not responsible for it. This is where, when we look at intersectional, a lens of it, breaking people down by also where they live, by their income, whatever you want to talk about, women can be just as complicit. White women can be extremely violent. I mean, Emmett Till, if your listeners were to Google Emmett Till was a 14-year-old boy that a white woman claimed on her way home, tried to assault her. He was hung and lynched, and it turned out to not be true. And this was back in the early 1900s.
Right. Was that the one that Dave Chappelle talked about, I think?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's white women can be extraordinarily violent. It's part of the reason why there's a responsibility for those of us in that space to be able to talk to other white women. I mean, it's so dog whistle. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot happening right now where people, even like the whole trad wife trend is
I was going to ask you
the what?
Trad wives.
So I don't know.
Okay,
what that
so
is.
my wife and I had this long conversation about trad wife on a hike one day.
Okay.
Trad wife is traditional wife.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a movement that's happening right now. So I was
There's a lot of
younger.
younger, yeah.
Trad wife. I've seen it on X now.
well,
That
they're,
like
you know,
with
they're
the,
wearing
like,
the
the
long
conservative
dresses
posts. I'll
and
see trad wife
making bread.
Yeah.
The crazy thing to me, and this is what my wife and I talked about, is like they are so naive that they don't realize that they like. There's nothing wrong if you want to be a traditional quote unquote wife
If it's by choice.
by choice, and they don't seem to realize that like all of the women that have come before them that have fought for certain rights have allowed them to be able to make that choice. And they're now fighting against it and saying it's not that they want to be a trad wife, it's the fact that they're like shooting women down who don't want to be that.
Yeah. I think it's this whole idea of like the other, right? Like I think this,
Right. Okay. I'm just getting so confused by this. I'll take my brain time to process. Sorry.
Here's the one thing I'll always say. It's always about consent.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything is about consent. Did you consent to this? Was this your choice? Great. Happy for you. Let other people have the ability to have consent on what they do with their bodies,
right,
how they choose to live their lives. If it is not ultimately impacting you in any way, shape, or form.
I thought that was always the goal, right? So we could get on to the next bigger, better thing. Like I thought, like we've got so stupefied in the last so many years about where we are at. And I mean, I feel like when history looks back on us, we are going to be like the anti-science age and the anti-fact age and the like.
It feels like the Middle Ages are kind of
progressing age. Like what the hell?
Well,
like,
I can tell you, like I have a 3.5-year-old, and for as long as
I'm amazed you're still awake.
I honestly, we have tried to hammer home consent for him in every aspect, right? We kind of, as
letting
as a
him
young
decide,
man, that we try to let him decide certain things, but we also like coach him on it, right? And he and I he loves to wrestle, right? Like he and I do wrestle and I throw him in the bed and all this stuff. We love it, right? And we always do it before bed. And he'll ask, and he'll be like, "Dad, can we fight before we go to bed?" And it's like, "Yeah, but all right, let's go." But sometimes, he'll,
push it too
whatever.
far.
He may go with me. It's okay, kind of thing. Sometimes he might attack my wife and whatever. And I'll sit him down. We sit him on the floor, and I look at him, "Bud, remember?" I said, "You can only fight somebody when both people agree to fight, right?" It's like, it's literally, I'm telling him,
it's like, WWF rules.
It's like you talking to me after I had too many drinks.
But it's like, it's that consent thing, right? So it's like, listen, you know what? Boxing happens. UFC happens. Both of those people agree to get into a ring and do it.
Yeah.
If he goes and fights if he is in high school and he goes to fight, I'm going to say, "Buddy, do both of you guys go out and decide to like square off? You walked off and you went and squared off. You know what, bud? You're probably not in trouble. But if you're bullying anybody, if you're hitting somebody and you're picking on somebody, not cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Right?
I
don't know.
It's interesting. I think, when people get a little bit of a taste of power, whether it's a 3.5-year-old
exactly.
I think people who are in positions of power lose their connection. Again, it goes back to relationship. You forget what it's like to be the person who was not able to do something or not able to, like, I think I don't know what it is about humans. We have this need to constantly overpower, dominate one another, whether mentally, physically.
So let me ask you this, though. If you, like Matt, you're raising your kid and stuff and giving them all the right tools, I think the probability of that probably would go down a hell of a lot, wouldn't it? That they would be more, or is it instinctual? Can we even control this thirst or quench for power? I mean, I always say, like, I have to check myself because it's almost like you almost always want to have an enemy in life as a man, right?
Look at what you said about Canadian politics, right?
Yeah.
The change has been because there's nothing more unifying than a common enemy.
Which has been great for us, right? Because, and but how you really, I said this earlier about inner peace, like you really have to say, like, let that shit go, right? You really have to find a way to stop looking for the next thing to be pissed off about, right?
Well, you should come over and talk to me. My husband would love you to coach me through, like, get off Twitter. Stop it. Who are you yelling at right now?
Like,
stop it.
I am avoiding the comment section lately. I have been.
It's so free. And I mean, I can't do it all the time. I would be such a liar if I said I did. I do it some of the time. Yeah. But when I can do it, when I get into that zone, I'm just not going to fucking worry about it.
Isn't it great?
You feel so great.
I don't know.
It's better than happy.
Yeah, I mean, if I had
different.
Okay. God, your poor listeners are probably like, Jesus Christ, this is turning into some kind of... I think capitalism is fundamentally some of the core crux of why this all exists, right? Like, I'm a fundraiser. I have spent my career working on... Okay, I have two sides of the coin. I have people who have so much wealth, so much power, so much privilege that I talk to you, and I'm trying to convince them to just carve off a small amount of what they have to help those who have the least amount.
Right.
Neither group are happy because one has so much money, so much power. They have no sense of. They have done everything they can to make more because that's what society teaches them is going to make them happy, and at the end of their life, they're miserable.
Right.
We have people who have nothing. They have whatever his systemic issues have caused them to be born into a situation where they haven't been able to. And there's this giant chasm in the middle. And I think people are constantly striving to get to that end where it's the wealth, the privilege, whatever. It doesn't make... I've never met a really extraordinarily wealthy person who's super happy.
Really?
Never. Most of them regret it. Most of them say that it was by luck. Most of them say that they spent more time with their business than their kids. They didn't spend enough time with their wives. They're on their third wife, fourth wife, X number of girlfriends, or vice versa, But they never, it just doesn't, it's like a hole that can't be filled. And then you also have people who literally cannot get one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Can't get ahead. So for those of us that are in the middle, it's like, okay, well, where are we spending our time, our energy, and our money so that gap closes? And I think both of you are involved in some work with like a really great organization as well. And I think people like us have to kind of pull these two ends closer together because if we're not fundamentally shifting, we have too many people with too much and too many people with too little.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
I've said, we were talking about this. Like, Elon Musk is worth $400 billion. He could give $399 billion away, still be a billionaire, still have more money than he'd ever know how to spend. And he could probably solve world hunger and shelter for everyone in North America. And he'd still be a billionaire. He could literally set up 400 charities with $1 billion and have those feed off interest that could fix everything.
But they wouldn't let him in the rooms he's in now if he didn't have $400 billion.
Exactly.
Nobody would be listening to him.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the access it buys him, right? I don't know. I don't know if I guess what I would say is like the most important thing we can all be doing is talking.
Yeah.
Sitting down face to face, having in-person conversations.
Face to face is huge.
I agree with that. I kind of feel that's what won Trump like his first term. I think he's gone off the rails in this second term. I really feel like he's really.
You think?
Well, I mean, like he's literally acting.
Name one example.
He's acting like a toddler. Like he really is acting like having a toddler. Yeah. He's acting like a toddler, like irrational, like emotional, every day to day, all the, like throwing temper tantrums, all this stuff. And mix that with if my 3-year-old toddler had narcissism, that would be Donald Trump. That being said, in this first term, although I still didn't like him, I understood why people were voting for him because he was at least he was more intelligent. He had more of those dog whistle, not the blatant stuff. He had more of the dog whistle type of policies. And he went and he did something that Hillary didn't, and that was visit that steel belt. He went in there and said, I'm bringing your jobs back, right? I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And people it was like, okay, so yeah, he's probably a racist, misogynistic person, but I live in Madison, Minnesota, or Madison, Wisconsin, whatever, and I'm worried about the factory that just closed, and I live in an all-white town. I just want to put food on the table. I don't care if he hates Mexicans or devalues women. Like, literally, that was the mentality, right?
I know. Yeah, that just breaks my heart, but yes,
I know, but that's like, people voted on the fact that
immediate needs supersede.
They put the blinders on, right? Like, this is something I realized not just a few years ago when I was talking to a friend who didn't feel like it was his responsibility to help others, and I kind of realized like he was hurting so much that like blinders are up. And he's like, listen, I need help. I can't help anyone else. And I realized that like the more we can lift people out of poverty, the more we can lift people up in general. Like rising tides float all boats. Yeah. Then we have more people to help other people. And I think that's the thing is when you say talking, is we can almost help to understand other people and maybe win them over a little bit and help them see the other side and help them relate a little bit. And hopefully we can get them over to the point where they're in a good spot and then they can help the next person.
I think the pandemic did a lot of damage.
Sure did.
Yeah.
I think it really did. Mental health. Yeah.
Isolated people.
Yep. Oh yeah. And I don't think society's fully recovered. And I don't think society's fully grieved what happened.
No, that's fair.
And I think that the more we can do this kind of stuff, the better. Most people, I don't know if you've ever had someone really upset and angry, like in customer service or something, and they're getting
work in insurance.
Okay.
People hate us.
Yeah, exactly. So, but do you ever find like you pull that person aside, sit them down in a room, or actually call them back, and you'll find that they come down, and just as long as they're heard, like I think hearing people can go a long way to changing the way people feel about each other. I think most people are angry because they haven't been heard. It all comes back to the same thing.
That's fair, yeah.
You can't get over something. You can't heal. You can't move on until you've had your ability. And then at that point, if you still can't move on, to your point, maybe you need to work on some inner stuff. But I think most of the time, as long as we feel like, at least I've had my chance to say how I felt about this, whether you change it is up to you. Yeah. So I don't know. I like if I had all the answers, I'd be a millionaire or billionaire. But
are you writing a book?
Yeah. Oh fuck no.
No? Jeez, I mean, I think you could. You could get on that. And,
I had someone suggest I start a podcast. I was like, God, no.
No, well, the Substack's going.
Let me introduce you to AI.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I think you got a lot to share with the world.
So now, okay, that was a really
10 questions
great.
Time, right?
We're going to do 10 questions. So that was
shit.
very.
Buckle up!
Oh God!
This is way like.
Okay, Linda.
No,
let's go.
We've already went pretty hard in the paint today. So this is pretty. This is pretty
really
easy.
So this is 10 questions with Linda.
With Linda, yeah. I'm going to send this to my
now
mother.
I'm definitely going to call her Linda because we've been doubling down on it. It's going to mess me up.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to start with number one?
Sure did.
All right.
Okay, so question number one. Your least favorite movie or TV show of 2024? Least favorite, for whatever reason.
Least favorite.
What did you watch that maybe you were looking forward to it and it sucked?
Oh, Jesus. Oh, I don't watch bad TV.
No?
I think that's the benefit of streaming is I don't have to.
That's fair.
God, I can't. I don't know. I really
something you had to sit through with the kids. Bad show. No,
I don't watch shows with them because they have bad taste in shows. So no, they watch mostly soccer.
All right, cool.
Okay, all right.
No answer.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Question number 2. So, if one of these creatures were banished from the earth tomorrow, cats or dogs, which one would you pick?
Oh, cats.
That was easy.
All day long.
Really?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah,
and the cat was the distraction.
To the cat. Oh, no, I was just shocked by that. No, I'm a dog person. 100%.
Okay. All right. You know what? I have a cat and he's an asshole.
Yeah, you know what? I'm working at the SPCA. That was quite a controversial statement, so I was prepared to defend myself. Yeah.
Am I number 3?
You're number 3.
Okay. This is easy, or maybe not easy. It's controversial. Poutine or donair?
Oh, poutine, I can't eat donairs.
Not a donair person? Perfect.
No, I just can't. Long story. I can't eat onions or garlic, so my choices are limited.
Okay.
Yeah, poutine might be my only option.
Oh,
so.
right. Makes sense.
Yeah, if anyone wants to kill me, just like shove an onion into something. That's basically
I don't know.
Onions and garlic, you're a vampire.
death by onion. Exactly, yeah. Something like that.
All right, question number 4. So, how many feminists does it take to screw in a light bulb?
None. We would have figured out something else. Yeah, no, I don't know.
The acceptable answer was, that was not funny. I snuck that one in there.
You're not funny.
Yeah,
That's so rude.
All right. Okay. Liz, this came off your LinkedIn. We are living in times of shock and awe. I must have read one of your other articles.
That was about Donald Trump.
Because I wrote this the first time. Like, I think when the first time we were all going to do our thing. How do you think we can build a better vision for the future? Oh, geez, that's a hard question. What was I drinking there? Liz?
Well, I think she's already kind of answered it.
You've kind of answered this one. I think this episode,
community.
This has kind of been the theme. Community, working together.
Being in community with one another.
Signing your petition.
Signing our petition.
Big first step.
Yeah, give Tim a call. If anyone's got his phone number, just send him this podcast and tell him to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Yep. All right, question number 6. So another quote that we liked. What is power if we cannot use it for the collective liberation? So great quote. How would you suggest other women in power help others?
I think the biggest thing I would say, is what I talked about before, which is it's really easy as a white woman to say, okay, check these boxes off as like fulfilling the same trajectory that a lot of men have been stuck in, which is like these are the definitions of power and success. But how are we really bringing everyone up with us together, right? What does success mean if you're not sharing it with the people that you care about or the communities that you're in? And I think if we don't have, I would say this, if you don't have any friends that don't look like you and don't have the same background as you, you should probably be trying to make some different friends, because I think the experience I've had is that I don't understand what the world is really like unless I'm in relationship with people who have different experiences than I do.
I'll tell you, I know we touched a little bit on DEI, but I can tell you, when people talk about how the DEI stuff and how whether they're against it or whatever, I can tell you as someone who I manage an agency, and reason to me why I see it as a huge advantage is that you can see things from so many different perspectives, which actually is a benefit, not a dumbing down of the whatever they want to call it, right? Yeah. But I actually I saw it I took an agency, and in half the time that it was open, more than doubled the revenue that it was doing. And how I did that was I saw that people were consistently hiring a bunch of white people, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take ads out in languages, only in those languages that people who can read and speak that language that I'm hiring. So that's how I hired people who I wanted to hire. And you could eventually, if you came into my office, at its peak, could hear 6 different languages being spoken in my office.
Awesome.
And we grew it really well, right?
Yeah.
So I see that as a huge strength.
Well, I mean, people love to be connected to the communities that are familiar to them. So if you're growing a diverse group of communities connected to your business, then you're just going to grow your business. I think one of the things that always shocks me is when people are like, oh, especially around this trad wife thing and not want women to have, I'm like, 50% of the population, you want to cut that off? That's weird to me. It's a really weird decision. I mean, there's a reason why you're starting to see more and more stuff around menopause and midlife. Women are becoming a very prominent and powerful voting bloc, and you're going to start seeing policies changing around that, right? We have a lot of buying power too, but I think we also have to remember that communities of color in particular are so used to racism that when they find a space and place where someone's embracing the differences versus pushing them away, they will embrace your business. It's a very powerful tool for growing a business in the right way. So, anyways, sorry, I'll go.
Okay. Question number 7 over to you.
All right. So, just name a spot in Nova Scotia that would equate to a perfect day. A place you'd love to go in Nova Scotia.
Salt Marsh Trail.
Very nice.
I bike there every weekend.
Every weekend.
Every weekend.
Well, except for the winters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I would if I could, but I'm not that brave. So,
All right. So question number 8 is, from any time in your life, childhood to present, what was one of your favorite childhood albums and why?
oh my God, we had a Michael Jackson Thriller tape.
Oh, nice.
And I have no idea how we ended up with it, but my brother and I used to listen to that all the time. But that being said, best story of my childhood growing up was that my parents are immigrants from the UK, and they did not know who Billy Idol was.
Oh.
My mom and my dad came home one day from work with 4 tickets to go see Billy Idol. And my mom thought he was a jazz singer, and she's like, let's take the kids. They packed a picnic basket and whatever. They took me. My brother was 5.5. I was like 8.5. And we went down to Ontario Place. It was packed with bikers, like just clouds of pot smoke. But my parents were insistent that we were going to at least see like the first bit of the show. And anyways, we watched Billy Idol at that age. And like to this day is still one of the funniest fucking stories ever. My mom taking her 2 kids to Billy Idol, dressed in her like whatever. The guys in the biker gangs, I swear it was all Hell's Angels, were like, yeah, these kids are awesome. Yeah, that was one of the best stories of our family for sure.
That's great.
So
that's a good story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 9. What were you?
This is a spicy one.
Uh-oh.
That's not that
More
spicy.
light
Not that
bulbs?
spicy. No.
Okay.
Which Canadian political party do you think aligns better for the liberation of women?
Oh, jeez. Honestly, no. I struggle with all 3 of them. What are we talking about? Federal or provincial?
Federally.
It's hard.
It's tough, yeah?
Yeah.
And why is that?
Because I think women have different ideas of what their liberation looks like. So I think people would
great
naturally say that I should lean towards the NDP, but I also think there's things the NDP have done that I don't find.
And also sucks to be pushed, like you just said. There's a diverse.
I think
group
the
of
best
thoughts.
thing that you can do is offer women choice.
100%. Love it. Great answer.
That is a great answer. All right, so last question. It's one that we ask every single person who comes on our show. So what is one quote or piece of advice that you were given in your lifetime that you would like to share with us?
Oh, shit. I should have studied better for this. I've had so many great pieces of advice. The one that resonated the most with me was my friend Anika Allen. When I was going through a tough time, she said, the best thing you can do is make sure you have a rich inner life.
Make sure you have a what in your life?
Rich inner life.
Rich inner life.
Because then no matter what people say about you, no matter how difficult
We
things
just got
get.
the title of your book.
Rich inner life.
Rich inner life.
But like having a really rich idea of who you are, what you believe in, your values, but also finding joy in your life.
Yeah.
And like you said, people can say what they want to, and it's not like water's off a duck's back, but I don't find myself as, when I spend time in nature, I spend time doing art, I know that I can fall back on those things to bring me joy. So, yeah. There you go.
Out the park. Great answers.
Love it. That's great. And you know what? I have to say, as just a little bit of funny, because you're really hard in on this book, and I had this little the comedian in me had this little bubble in my brain that's like, you're gonna ghostwrite her book now.
Oh God!
Oh, yeah.
And it's gonna be Rich Inner Life, the story of an intersectional feminist.
By
Linda. By Linda. Ghost written by Michael Tobin.
I don't know. I just think you had a lot to say. This was a very entertaining
This was a great
show.
chat.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you, and thank you for hanging in there. I know I had to
listening.
reschedule a couple
if you're still with
times.
us, we
No,
appreciate
it was great. It was worth it.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you for listening to The Afternoon Pint. We are an independent podcast, and we need your support. Please take a moment to hit that like, follow, and share button. Email us if you have an idea or suggestion for the show. Please send your feedback. We'd love to hear from you.